Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will be discussing a very important topic related to blood vessels, that is hypertension. So the hypertensive vascular disease is a very important disease that is the major cause of atherosclerosis, the ischemic heart disease, the cerebrovascular disease, stroke, and the peripheral vascular disease. So what is hypertension? Hypertension is the elevated blood pressure, that is the systolic blood pressure above 139 mm of mercury and the diastolic blood pressure above 89 mm of mercury. So hypertension remains asymptomatic until late in its course. So it contributes to the pathogenesis of the coronary heart disease, the cerebrovascular disease, and it ultimately causes the cardiac hypertrophy, the heart failure, aortic dissection, and the renal failure. So what are the factors that regulate blood pressure? So blood pressure is basically the sum of the cardiac output and the peripheral vascular resistance. So these factors are in turn regulated by other factors. So cardiac output is regulated under the influence of the cardiac factors and the blood volume. And among the cardiac factors, the most important is the heart rate, and the second is the contractility of the heart that ultimately contributes to the cardiac output. And among the stroke volume, it is mainly regulated by the sodium hemostasis in the body, the production of the mineralocorticoid or the aldosterone from the adrenal gland, and the synthesis of the atrial natriuretic peptide. This is the enzyme that is released from the cardiac atrium. So these are the factors that regulate the cardiac output. And the peripheral vascular resistance, that is regulated at the level of the arterioles under the influence of neural and the hormonal factors. And among the neural factors, there are alpha adrenergic vasoconstrictor and the beta adrenergic vasodilators. And among the hormonal factors, there are certain vasoconstrictors that are the angiotensin II, the catecholamines, the thromboxane, the leukotrienes, the endothelin. And among the vasodilators, there are prostaglandins, the bradykinins, and the atrial natriuretic peptide that are released in response to the reduced or the elevated blood pressure. And then finally, the blood pressure is regulated locally under the influence of the autoregulatory mechanism, the pH, and the hypoxia. So this is the very important diagram that is showing the renin-angiotensin or the aldosterone axis that determines the blood pressure regulation. So as you can very well appreciate on the left side of the diagram, the reduced blood pressure, whenever there is reduced blood pressure, there is low blood volume and the low peripheral vascular resistance that ultimately stimulates the kidney. So kidney releases a hormone that is referred to as the renin, and it is produced by the juxtaglomerular cells of the afferent arterioles, and this hormone causes the conversion of angiotensinogen that is released from the liver into the angiotensin I. So this angiotensin I is a very important enzyme because it acts on the vascular endothelium in many tissues and causes the release of the angiotensin converting enzyme or the ACE enzyme from the lung, and this ACE enzyme converts the angiotensin I into angiotensin II, and then this angiotensin II acts on the adrenal gland and stimulates the synthesis of aldosterone. So the aldosterone is the major hormone that causes the excessive reabsorption of the sodium and water in the distal convoluted tubules of the kidney and regulates the blood volume by elevating the blood pressure. And then this angiotensinogen or the angiotensin II also acts on the peripheral arterioles, ultimately leads to their vasoconstriction and thereby elevating the blood pressure. So on the right side of the diagram, there are written the factors that are involved in the pathogenesis of hypertension, and among these factors, the factors that cause increase in blood volume ultimately leading to increase in blood pressure are the excessive dietary intake of sodium, and then the inadequate excretion of sodium from the kidney that occurs in the renal failure. And then there are certain disorders that are involved that leads to the gene defects or defects in the enzyme that are involved in the aldosterone metabolism, that are aldosterone synthetase, the 11 and 17 alpha and beta hydroxylase, ultimately leading to the excessive excretion of the aldosterone. And then there are certain disorders that may lead to the mutations in proteins that are involved in the excretion of sodium from the body. So these are the Gitelman, the Bartter and the Liddle syndrome. So the second are the factors that may lead to the increased in peripheral vascular resistance. So increased sympathetic tone in the pheochromocytoma and the increased renin-angiotensin or the aldosterone excess that may lead to the elevated blood pressure or the hypertension. So whenever there is elevated blood pressure, then there is volume overload on the heart, and the heart tries to maintain this blood pressure. So from the heart atrium, a hormone called the atrial natriuretic peptide is released that acts on the peripheral arterioles, ultimately leads to their vasodilation, thereby lowering the blood pressure. And it also acts on the kidneys, thereby stimulating the excessive excretion of the sodium and water from the renal parenchyma, leading to the reduced blood pressure and thereby maintaining the blood pressure. So this is very important, the renin-angiotensin and the aldosterone mechanism. So now coming to the pathogenesis of hypertension, there are two types of hypertension. The first one is the primary hypertension that contributes to the 90 to 95% of the cases. It is idiopathic or the essential hypertension, and it is influenced by certain genetic, environmental factors including the obesity, the smoke, and which is compatible with a long life unless a secondary or a serious event, that is the ischemic heart disease, the stroke or other complications supervenes. So these kind of hypertension remain undiagnosed. So approximately 5% of the cases of hypertension occur secondary to certain diseases that are involving the kidney or the adrenal glands, that is the renal artery stenosis, usually by an atheromatous plaque, that is referred to as the renovascular hypertension. And then there are certain diseases involving the adrenal gland, the primary hyperaldosteronism, the pheochromocytoma, the Cushing syndrome, that will ultimately lead to the secondary hypertension. Then there is a third variety of hypertension that is referred to as the accelerated or the malignant hypertension. It is a clinical syndrome that is characterized by the elevated systolic blood pressure over 200 mm of mercury and the diastolic blood pressure over 120 mm of mercury, and it will lead to the renal failure, the retinal hemorrhage, exudates with or without papilledema. So majority of the patients that have malignant hypertension die within 1 to 2 years. So now coming to the types and causes of hypertension, this is the table that I have copied from the Robbins. The essential hypertension, 90 to 95% of all cases, and then the secondary hypertension and its causes involving the renal system, the endocrine system, the cardiovascular system, and the neurologic causes that I have discussed previously. Now coming to the vascular pathology in hypertension. In hypertension, there is accelerating atherogenesis. It potentiates both the aortic dissection and the cerebrovascular hemorrhage. So there are two types of small blood vessel disease that occurs in hypertension. The first one is the hyaline arteriosclerosis. It is basically the deposition of the pink homogeneous hyaline material within the wall of the arterioles with resulting destruction of the underlying media, leading to the narrowing of the lumen of the arteriole, and it is due to the leakage of the plasma protein across the injured endothelial cells and increase in smooth muscle matrix synthesis. So it is a major mechanism involved in the diabetic nephrosclerosis and leads to the diabetic microangiopathy. The second type of the hypertensive vascular pathology is the hyperplastic arteriosclerosis, that is related to the acute or severe elevation of the blood pressure or the malignant hypertension, and it is associated with concentric laminated onion skin thickening of the walls of the arterioles with resultant the luminal narrowing, and the laminations consist of smooth muscle cell and the thickened duplicated basement membrane. So these are the two types of the vascular pathologies that occur in hypertension. In figure A, there is hyperplastic arteriosclerosis, that is the deposition of the homogeneous pink haline material within the wall of the arterioles. And in figure B, there is concentric laminated onion skin thickening of the wall of the arteriole and resulting narrowing lumen. So in hyperplastic arteriosclerosis, there is ultimate destruction of the wall of the artery as a result of the deposition of the fibrin, leading to necrotizing vasculitis. So the second major topic that we will be covering today is the Raynaud's phenomena. So the Raynaud's phenomena results from exaggerated vasoconstriction of the digital arteries and arterioles, and these arterioles and the arteries are usually present within the fingers, the toes, the nose, the ear lobes and the lips, and it most commonly occurs as a result of excessive cold, emotional or the psychological stress. So the involved digits classically show the red, white and blue appearance in response to the vasodilation, the central vasoconstriction and the distal cyanosis. So it could be the first manifestation of immune mediated vasculitis. So there are two main types of Raynaud's phenomena, the primary Raynaud's phenomena and the secondary Raynaud's phenomena. So the primary Raynaud's phenomena is the exaggeration of the central and local vasomotor responses to cold or emotion, and it most commonly occurs in young females. And in primary Raynaud's phenomena, there is symmetric involvement of the extremities, and this type of phenomena is less severe. While in the case of secondary Raynaud's phenomena, that occurs as a result of certain other diseases, that is the SLE, the scleroderma, the Berger disease or the atherosclerosis, there is asymmetric involvement of the vessels and this disease is more severe. So now the next are the diseases involving the veins and the lymphatics. The first is the varicose vein, and this disease most commonly involves the superficial veins of the lower legs, and these vessels become distended as a result of the incompetent valves that are present behind the knee joint in the popliteal fossa, and as a result of the incompetence of these valves, the blood that has to return to the heart from the lower extremities pools within the superficial veins of the lower extremities, and these vessels become distended. This disease is more cosmetic than anything else, and this disease primarily affects the persons who are obese, that have jobs with legs dependent position, that are the barber, the surgeons, and then the pregnancy. These are the predisposing factors, and these valve incompetence leads to the stasis, edema, congestion and ultimately the pains in the lower legs and the foot. So as a result of the pooling of the blood within the superficial veins of the legs, the skin diseases occur, that are the stasis, dermatitis, the ulceration of the skin, but these varicose veins are generally asymptomatic. They do not cause emboli. And sometimes these varicose veins can be the manifestation of certain major diseases that are the liver cirrhosis or the hepatic vein obstruction that ultimately leads to the portal hypertension, and this portal hypertension will lead to the reopening of portosystemic shunts, and as a result of which the blood flow to the vessels of the lower esophagus, the blood flow to the vessel of the anorectal junction and the umbilicus increases, and ultimately this leads to the formation of esophageal varices, the hemorrhoids and the caput medusae. Then the second disorder involving the veins is the thrombophlebitis or the phlebothrombosis. As you can see from the name, thrombophlebitis is the inflammation of the vessel wall with thrombosis, and the phlebothrombosis is the thrombosis of the vessel wall. So these two disorders combined together are referred to as the deep venous thrombosis or the DVT. So deep venous thrombosis most commonly involves the deep veins of the lower extremities, the periprostatic venous plexus in males and the pelvic venous plexus in females. And this disease most commonly occurs in persons who are immobilized, the patients who are suffering from a chronic disease, the cancer patients, the post-operative patients, the patients having congestive heart failure, and certain disorders that leads to the systemic hypercoagulable state. So in cancer patient, the thrombosis is very characteristic that it involves certain veins and then it disappears from that vein and appears in some other region of the body. So this condition is referred to as the migratory thrombophlebitis or the Trousseau's sign. And then these patients experience pain in the calf muscle with associated red tender lesions and a positive omen sign, that is, if we dorsiflex the foot of these patients, they produces pain. So the factors which increases the risk of the thrombophlebitis or the phlebothrombosis are the estrogen, the birth control pills, smoking, age, hypercoagulable disorder. So pulmonary embolism is the major complication of the DVT leading to the death. Then there are certain disorders that involve the superior vena cava, which is the major blood supply from the upper part of the body, and then the inferior vena cava, which is the major vessel that is causing the venous return from the lower half of the body. So the bronchogenic carcinoma and the mediastinal lymphoma compress the superior vena cava, ultimately leads to the dilatation of the veins of the head, neck and the arms that are the upper extremity veins. And then the inferior vena cava syndrome is the compression of the inferior vena cava as a result of the hepatocellular carcinoma or the renal cell carcinoma, ultimately leading to the pooling of blood within the lower extremities. And if there is involvement of the renal vein, it may lead to proteinuria. Then coming to the diseases of the lymphatics, there are lymphangitis, that is the inflammation of the lymphatic vessel due to the bacterial or the viral infection. And these dilated lymphatics have neutrophils and monocytes within their walls, and they produce red painful subcutaneous streaks, the inflamed lymphatics and the painful enlarged lymph node, and this condition is referred to as the lymphadenitis. So the major causes of the lymphangitis and the lymphedema are the primary and the secondary. And among the primary lymphedema, and it mostly occurs as a result of certain congenital disorders, and the secondary lymphedema occurs as a result of the blockage of the previously normal lymphatic vessels by malignant tumors, certain surgical procedures, the post-irradiation fibrosis and the filariasis. So as a result of the obstruction of the lymphatics, there is increased in hydrostatic pressure. This will lead to the leakage of the interstitial fluid out of the lymphatic vessels, ultimately leading to edema. So in certain disorders that are the cancers of the breast, there is obstruction of the dermal lymphatics as a result of infiltration by the tumor cells, and as a result of the accumulation of interstitial fluid within the skin, there is characteristic appearance of the breast skin that is referred to as the POD orange appearance. And if these lymphatic vessels rupture, they may lead to the accumulation of interstitial fluid within the abdomen that is referred to as the ascites, that is the accumulation of the lymphatic fluid within the peritoneum. And then the chylothorax, accumulation of the lymphatic fluid within the pleura, and the chylopericardium, that is the accumulation of the interstitial fluid within the pericardium. Thank you so much.